This is a game in the Tier 10 American heavy tank, the T110E5, on Sand River, and I want to show a couple things on this. One is how to play this map with a heavy tank, but two is also sort of this appropriate distance to play this south here. And we'll talk about that in a bit, but generally in a heavy tank what you want to do is you want to play either this south, this K line here, or this village sort of J line here. A lot of it depends on what your team comp and distribution looks like and what their team comp looks like. In this particular case they have a lot of tank destroyers. They do have some speed, so they could potentially get those medium tanks over to that south area there, but medium tanks usually don't, well, puppies in general don't usually try to light that south area, so usually you can get pretty far. So we'll go ahead and start heading down there, and we're going to watch what our team does, and particularly the tier 10s. Right, most of our guys are going to this north here, so that's something that we have to keep an eye on. There's a T30 that's coming over here with us, and if you keep an eye on that T30's positioning, he does a good job of keeping himself in the game in terms of getting himself shots, which for a yellow tanker is quite nice, and he is rewarded for it. We have a JPE and the E3 all the way in the back over here, so keep that in mind. So if you have somebody that's going to go onto this south area over here, the closer that you are, you want to start out about where this T30 is, because that's going to give you shots into this area there. These guys back here aren't really in that sort of K9 area, aren't really going to get too many shots. And usually as you crest over this hill, if there's something immediately on the right, you'll be able to see it. So there's a 263 there, so that's something useful to keep in mind. But he's not going to really be a factor for people on the K line, because he really can't get shots there, particularly as a non-turreted tank destroyer. So what you want to be able to do is get up to this dune and then peek over. There's a sort of passageway between these two dunes here that you can look through. This is a good place where I can see how many things, slower things, anything faster I wouldn't be able to see, but how many slow things I can see went this way. And I can also see if that 263 backed up over on that city side, which he did not. So he's still over there someplace, but again, it's not too much of a factor for me quite yet. So they do have an RU-251 up here, which is somewhat of a expected occurrence. It's surprising that he didn't get to his position sooner, because if he drove out here directly, then potentially, he can keep me pretty far in the back. And you'll notice that T30 is up there with me, but there's 310s, probably about 200 meters behind us. So they really haven't gotten themselves into the game yet. Eventually they will. And we know that there's a T28 that was headed out this way.
It's a trap!
And then 263 is in the bottom, but I'd like to get ahead. Once you start cresting this side of this hill, it becomes much easier for artillery to shoot you. So there's a small window right here where if that 263 was far enough forward, he could have shot me. But since he wasn't there, I can push through. And then I want to be aggressive here and push through, because I don't want to sit behind it, because there's not really much artillery cover here. So we know that there's two AT-15s, not a problem. Bully, bully, bully. And then once you get to this position over here, you're safe. And then so when you look at what happened on the north, we sent a lot of tanks on the north, but so did they. They've got a lot of guys on the back of this hill here. And that's potentially good for us, because it gives us a lot of targets as long as they're lit. They've got some guys in the base that we have to keep track of, FU-183 in particular. And then our 1390 that was spotting over there has backed off, so we're not going to get spots for a little bit, so we'll try to see if we can help out in this base side. And then you have to remember, like, when I get lit there, those guys that are in the middle that I was shooting at are going to be able to shoot at me, right? Even though I can't see them because they're outside of my detect range. So that's something to keep an eye on. They brought 210s back in through the base, so this Wheezy needs to be careful. You cannot, like, I cannot drive up here. These guys cannot drive up here like they're doing. Otherwise, those guys that are in like that D5, D6 area are just gonna completely light them up. But if you see, our 1390 is headed west on the E line right now, so at some point he's gonna be able to get lights from me. So all I need to do right now is get set up and ready for that. And then what you want to do if you're that 1390, you know, well, if I'm on your team, is you just want to light there, and then you just want to be back up so that you're not getting shot. And then that will allow me to just basically get shots and lay into guys for this. And in the meantime, these guys down here on this lower plateau are sort of getting picked off a little bit by the 263, the IS-7, T-57. So just as it's easy for me to shoot these guys, it's easy for them to shoot our guys down low, because basically the guys in the base are lighting them, and then they're just getting free shots on them. So you need to be careful about where you choose to set up shop. And you'll notice that our T-30 has pretty much set up in the same position as me. He's not like right next to me, so he's not getting in my way. But he's in the area, so he's getting pretty much similar shots to what I'm getting.
It's a trap!
And there's two of them here. And at this point, it's been mop up for a little while now, but at this point it's definitely mop up. And so you'll notice that our T-30 took, you know, less than 300 health in damage. He basically let me front, which is really what you should do, and he used his gun to make himself relevant. So we pushed along this south K line here, and the best part of that, or the worst part for their team, was that they didn't send anybody out here early enough to spot us, to stop us, to keep us pinned back into this, you know, like the 6 or 7 line area. They didn't spot us, you know, until we sort of crested this ridge here where that 263 lit us, and then we didn't actually meet any actual resistance until a light tank in, you know, like K2, K3. So that allowed us to get way too much good strategic position before they had anything that was there to stop us. And then what they sent to stop us was just a bunch of 8s, which wasn't good enough. And they had a bunch of 10s on this north area, but they weren't able to break our north side. And that basically allowed us to completely crush this south and then come here and then essentially just shoot those guys in the ass once they were lit. And so if you look at the stats, it works out, you know, pretty much as you might imagine. Two things of note. One, we were able to do 7.2k damage, which was, most of it was pretty easy, right? It was either us bullying 8s, you know, on that south side, southwest side, or it was shooting guys who didn't have a chance to shoot back at us, you know, in that middle area. So it's a very easy amount of damage. But what's interesting to note is, like, you look at this T-30. This T-30 did 5k damage just from essentially following me around and getting similar shots and essentially giving support fire. And when you look at that compared to the damage that any of our other guys did, I mean, even guys in tier 10 tanks, you know, the JPE, who ended up, you know, he started out behind us and he ended up driving down the middle, essentially got 2 shots of damage. The E3 that was essentially in the same position as that JPE the whole time got 1 shot of damage. But this T-30, this yellow player, because he was in the right position to get shots and because he had somebody fronting for him, was able to do 5k damage, you know, essentially without breaking a sweat. So it's something to keep in mind about it. It's not necessarily, you know, once you get to a certain caliber of player, anybody can shoot tanks. It's just being in the right place to actually shoot tanks. That's the difficult part. So it's something to keep in mind when you're playing not only heavy tanks and tank destroyers on Sand River in particular, but in a lot of maps. If you can shadow somebody who's good at fronting and not get in their way, then you're going to usually reap the benefits from that. Anyhow, I hope that was helpful, and thanks for watching.